to our channel. My name is Dr. Harry Benjamin. Very grateful and thankful. We're leading the Wealth Creation Project. Very grateful for the opportunity to play a part here. This is our Sunday discussion. On Sundays, we take time to dive into topics that help us to remove blockades and obstructions that are hindering us from revealing our true nature, being able to utilize our superpowers, and allow us to be able to do more, achieve more, and be more in this world. So we have a conversation around that, and different individuals join me from time to time. Some of my loyals are here with me and so forth. And we have a conversation, and you're invited to come and join us in this process of eliminating obstructions that hinder us from being able to reveal our true nature and also be able to achieve the goals and dreams that we desire to accomplish in our individual lives and working collectively to build a business community as well. So you're invited to join either one of those areas. So today's topic is very interesting. It's going to be very interesting. Is what is the mind? You know, what is the mind? And we oftentimes just take it for granted. You know, a lot of people just take the whole idea of the mind for granted and not realizing what it really is. A lot of us do not know what it is. Let me shift my instrument over a bit. Okay, I need to see who. Okay, great. All right. So what the mind is, right? So what the mind is. So let's start. Let's answer that first question, and we're gonna dive right into the topic. Or dive right into the discussion. Let's start with you, Mark. Welcome, Annette. But what is the mind? What is the mind? From your perspective, Mark, Annette, I'd love for you to weigh in as well. What is the mind? Start with you, Mark. You should be full of answers after that 10K walk.
Excellent morning, everyone. So the mind is a very powerful part of our nature. And the first statement I would like to make about the mind is if I, as an individual, I am not able to control my mind, well then my mind will control me, and I will definitely be totally out of control.
Nice perspective. I like that. I like that perspective. Annette, what do you think the mind is? What do you think the mind is? If you don't mind unmuting and sharing, go ahead.
Morning again. The mind is where everything happens. Your thinking is in your mind. And sometimes you know something will happen and you will say, I don't should I follow my mind. Your mind tell you what to do. Everything is in the mind. This is why I think about the mind. Tell you what to do.
All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. All right. So so wonderful, man. Wonderful. Welcome, Jackie. We're discussing a topic here. What is the mind? It's something that we do on Sundays. We pick up topics. So Jackie just joined us recently. She's one of Dr. Copeland's partners. Hopefully Dr. Copeland gets on with us as well. Sometimes she's on here with us as well when she can. So welcome, Jackie. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. So the topic today is what is the mind, right? What is the mind? And individuals participate by answering questions. So Annette, thank you for that. Mark, thank you for the perspective. The next question I want to ask about that is the mind the brain? And what is the difference? Let's start with you, Mark. Is the mind the brain, and what is the difference?
Well, the mind, in my opinion, is not fully the brain. The mind, in my opinion, is not the brain. However, you could use your mind, you could use your brain to control your mind. So that is my objective there.
Annette, what about you? What do you think? Is the brain the mind?
I think the mind is the brain. Is where everything can come from is the brain. So I think the mind is the brain.
All right, thank you for that. What about you, Jackie? Do you have a perspective on that? Is the mind the brain? And if not so, what is the difference? If so, what's your perspective on that? Okay, Jackie, maybe Jackie doesn't want to say. Your line is muted just in case you're trying to speak.
The brain controls the mind.
Well, we're not hearing you clearly at all. There's a lot of feedback. And then there seems to be like a static, a lot of static on your line, and there's something in the background. We couldn't hear you clearly. All right, so thank you for that, Mark. Thank you for that, Annette. Thank you, Jackie, for chiming in. So here's the thing about the whole idea of the mind, and the whole idea about the mind versus the brain. The brain is this organ that we have that actually processes information. When we look at if you look at the physical body, information comes in through the 5 senses, right? So information comes in through our eyes, through our ears, we smell, we have taste, and we have touch. And that information goes through what we call our nervous system, and then it filters its way to the brain. And then the brain processes that information, and we are able to actually have a kind of like a seat of to and fro information. Now, the mind itself is actually not the brain. The mind is a set of programs that we actually end up with over the course of time. When a baby is born, let me give you an example of the mind being programmed when we're coming up. Okay, so if we have a Chinese baby, and we take a Chinese baby, and that baby is just born in China, born to 2 Chinese parents, they speak the Chinese language, and they have a Chinese accent. And we immediately take that baby and we bring that baby over to Trinidad or to Jamaica. All right, what language will the baby grow up speaking? Somebody unmute and tell me, Mark, what language did the baby grow up on speaking? If they were in, and what dialect? Annette, go ahead.
They will speak from the country that they live in, that they grow up in. If they grow up in Trinidad, they will speak like a Trinidadian, or Jamaican, they will speak like a Jamaican.
Right. So they end up speaking like, what type of mannerisms will they have? What type of habits will they have? What type of food would they like? Right? They're going to end up liking the Jamaican food, the Trinidadian food. They're going to have habits of Trinidadians and Jamaicans, even though they were born to Chinese parents. And the reason is that the mind that we have can be conditioned. Now, the mind and the brain are separate. The mind is not a physical thing. The mind is that aspect of ourselves that have there's a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. For example, can you imagine seeing yourself in another place? In fact, can you think about in your mind right now what is like to maybe have a meal this evening? Can you think about in your mind what you were doing yesterday, what you were doing 2 weeks ago? We can think about those things in the mind, and we can imagine what the future would look like. We can imagine a big house way bigger than the brain. We can imagine the sun, the moon, the stars. We can start to imagine all of that as one big picture and an image right now. And we're imagining that where? In our mind. So the mind is a very powerful aspect of ourselves, which is different from the brain. The brain is a processing instrument that processes the information that the mind may contain and then passes through. For example, Annette, you said, oh, I should have followed my mind. Your mind tried to give you a suggestion to do a certain thing at a certain point, and we did not follow our mind, all right? So when we start to align ourselves in this way, what starts to happen is that we start to make better use of it. But here's the thing. I shared with us a goal, Mark and Annette, right? And the goal that was accomplished that I wrote down, yeah, you guys went through this, and what we're doing is studying Think and Grow Rich, and we're going to dive into the subconscious mind here in one of the chapters this coming week. But what has happened is that if we do not take time to program the mind runs on automatic, right? And when it runs on automatic, what's happening is that it's running by default. And when it's running by default, we are going to be subject to the random nature. For example, Mark said it very well. If we do not learn to control our mind is going to end up controlling us, right? So it is really important that we mature in this way and start to really get a clear understanding of what the mind is, and then understanding what the mind is, also how to program the mind so that the mind does what it is that we want it to do. Because if not, the mind is just going to run in a random way. We're not going to have any sense of order and coordination in our lives because the mind is running in a random way, right? So here's the thing. We answer the question, what is the mind? Is the mind the brain? We've already established that the mind and the brain are different, right? Now the question is, how do we get the mind to do something that we want it to do? And before I even go to that aspect of our discussion, let me start with you, Mark. Generally speaking, what are the two aspects of the mind that we have heard about? From your perspective, Mark, what do you know about the mind in terms of how we define it? Because there's a way to define it in terms of two sections to it, right? Are you aware of how that's generally defined? Go ahead, Mark.
Well, as far as I know, first of all, we have the subconscious and we have the conscious. And the subconscious is always working in the background. The subconscious works from what we program, what we how to put it, what we feed ourselves daily, not even realizing. The subconscious takes that up and runs with it. Whereas the conscious mind is where you here saying, okay, I'm gonna go cook some food now. But the subconscious mind is a part that where you are, every day telling yourself, I am good, I'm a winner. I'll be the best person I can be. And your subconscious would be programming yourself to be such.
All right, thank you for that. Annette, you want to weigh in on that?
What is that?
About the conscious and subconscious? So here's the thing, right? As we move forward in the discussion. So here's the thing, right? The conscious and the subconscious. The thing about it is that if you have ever had this experience, and unmute and tell me if you have had this happen to you, because it happened to me a couple of times. You're leaving, let's say you're at work and you're there and you plan to stop at the supermarket on the way home to buy something that you wanted to prepare or you needed at home to be able to do something, right? You needed some extra tissue, you needed some extra food in the kitchen, or you needed some certain seasoning to be able to prepare something to eat. So on the way, you in the morning, you left home and you saw, okay, you needed X, Y, Z. And then after realizing you needed X, Y, Z, then, in the process of you're looking for X, Y, Z. So now that you're looking for X, Y, Z in your kitchen, you say, okay, I'm going to buy these things during the course of the evening when I'm on my way from work, right? Have you ever had the experience where you leave work on your way home, you totally forgot about going to the supermarket to pick up that thing, and you were, while you were even driving home, you were just thinking about other things and doing other things in your mind, and then you realize you got home, and then you realize you didn't stop at the supermarket. Has anybody ever had that happen to them before? Unmute and tell me.
Yes, Dr. B. Yes, Dr. B.
Yes, right.
Dr. B.
Right. So that's happened to you, Annette. All right. So here's the thing, right? The subconscious mind is what drove us home out of habit. So what happens is that our subconscious mind has these patterns and programs running inside of them. And if we do not take time out to intentionally now change these programs, we're going to actually be running a life that we may not necessarily even want to live. Because here's what happened. During ages 0 to 7, the mind is very flexible and very available to suggestion. So during those first 7 years, we don't even know what our parents are saying around us, what the people around us are saying. All rich people go to hell. Money doesn't grow on trees. We hear all of these statements coming up. A lot of things that are not in alignment with us being able to have the life that we desire. And as a result of that, we have a lot of programming that is not in our favor. A lot of programming that we picked up when we were growing up, especially during our first 7 years. And that program is today still running our life. So what we have to do is to reprogram the mind, because the mind is just a mind. If we understand that what it is, it's a set of programs that's running right now, and they're running, whether we like it or not. And if we do not take the time to really address what the mind has in it, then it's just driving us. And we're wondering, why is it that we're not getting the goals done? Why is it that we're not getting to where it is that we want to get to? Is because the mind does not have the programs in it that are aligned with what we want. So we want something, we desire this, we desire that, we want to have this particular life. But one of the things I've become so clear on that we need to do, like, no different from brushing our teeth, no different from getting up in the morning and brushing your teeth. You know, I'm sure all of us here probably brushed our teeth this morning, maybe had a shower, and we're ready for the day. We got dressed. Now, these are things that we do as a part of our social contract in living, but this, right, is not part of what we were taught coming up. And I think that this is one of the most important things. For me, it's like one of the biggest reminders of this, because I've known this for some time, right? I've known that we should have our goals written down, but I was not every day when I get up, and the same way I brush my teeth, the same way I put on my clothes, I was not getting up and writing down these goals and actually repeating them to myself in the morning and in the night, just like I'd brush my teeth. And when we start doing that, what we now do is that we put our subconscious mind to work in an alignment with what it is that we are seeking to achieve. And in that way, we start to reprogram our subconscious mind, and our subconscious mind will now start to do what it is that we want it to do, rather than running based on programs that we don't even know are there. Because a lot of times there's stuff happening in our subconscious that are directing our behavior that you and I don't even know we're doing. You know, have you ever done something and after you've done it, you wish you didn't do it? Have you ever had that experience? Unmute and tell me yes, if you have. Have you ever done something and then when you finish, you wish you hadn't done it? Right? You know, it's like you feel like you did something out of even
Yes.
what you, yes, on it. What about you, Mark? Have you ever had? Go ahead, Mark. You're unmuted. Go ahead. Yeah, Mark, are you there?
Yes, I had that experience previously.
You had that experience previously, right? So, hey, David, welcome, man. All right.
Hello. Hi.
How are you?
I'm very well.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right. So yes, so Mark, the experience of having doing something that we've never wanted to do. We didn't want to do that particular thing. All right. We didn't want to. We weren't planning to do that particular action, but yet still we ended up doing that particular action in reference to maybe somebody said something, somebody did something, and then you reacted in a way that you wish you hadn't done. And this is the reason. The reason is pretty simple. The reason is that these programs that we have in our mind, whenever something happens to us, we react in a particular way. We behave in a particular way based on past programming. So for us to change that and not do the things that we would not want to do, we have to recondition our mind. We have to invest the time and the energy to start to infuse into our mind the type of thoughts that we want to pop up in our mind when things are happening to us. And that's where affirmations come in. You know, we've spoken about this over and over again, about 7 practices that we need to employ as we're developing ourselves and we're growing. 7, you know, hanging around the right people. Number 6, selfless service, giving of ourselves in a way that lifts others up. 5, life visioning, you know, what it is that our creator is seeking to do by means of us. 4, high-minded conversations. And we're developing a high-minded conversation here, which over time, this is going to continue to grow as more individuals participate in it. And then 3, counting 7 to 1, right? Then 3 is spiritual study. What are you studying? What are we really reading to really start to light up the mind and allow for us to see more clearly? And then 2, affirmative prayer or affirmative speaking. Now, affirmative prayer and speaking is the way we recondition the mind. And then number 1 is meditation. Silent meditation, where it helps to cleanse the mind. And that becomes a way to start to clean up some of the debris that we inherited when we were growing up. But this particular aspect, you know, I believe that being able to have these goal cards, because I've learned this stuff. And sometimes I feel like beating myself up, but I know I shouldn't beat myself up about that. But learning that we should always, as a daily habit, repeat our goals to our mind. We need to give our mind an instruction We need to give it a task. It's almost like every day we need to say to our mind, go out and do this, do that, and these things. In fact, yesterday I gave my mind an instruction, and this morning it brought me, I told my mind to go and identify 4 or 5 people, 4 people that want to get enrolled today in our business. And one person sent me a message this morning that they're ready to get enrolled. You know, and I did the same thing Friday. Yesterday, a number of people sent me messages as well. So what we have to do is that we have to start to use our mind the way it was supposed to be used. Our mind is our tool. Our mind is an agent. Our mind is something that we should allow to function on our behalf. But oftentimes what happens is that we do not give it instruction, and it runs on automatic pilot. And because it's a set of programs, a lot of areas in our lives are not ordered the way we want them to, because we're not taking control of our mind. A lot of times our mind is even programmed by the world. You know, who has ever seen people in a line up to buy iPhone 13 and they're on iPhone 12 on the phone, right? Who has ever seen that, right? Somebody's on an iPhone 13 and they're in the line to buy iPhone number 14. Nothing is wrong with 13, but 14 was something that we were conditioned, our mind was hijacked by the advertising agencies, and they programmed the mind to convince people that they needed to go and buy the 14 because the 13 is now old. It's no longer, you know, in vogue. And because of these trends that we establish in our life and the way we live on the planet, people use these trends to condition our minds to get us to behave in a certain way. You know, why should a Mercedes Benz be more expensive than a Honda car? Right? Both of them are made of metal, both of them have leather, both of them have an engine inside, both of them have wheels. What is it that makes one 3 times the value of the other? Not the quality, no. It's just the way in which it has been pitched to us, the way it's been marketed to us, the way in which we have been conditioned to believe. You know, for example, you know, even a Rolls Royce, yes, it takes a year to make one and it takes hours to make a Corolla, but the bottom line is that both of them carry out the same function. And because they make a limited number of Rolls Royce and they do not make more than a certain number every year, it elevates its value. And it's just supply and demand that they use as a means and a way of establishing it with a certain look and a certain lifestyle and putting things around it. And then we value it and then therefore end up paying more for it. Not realizing that we're the ones giving it value and it doesn't have any value in itself outside of what we say it has. So understanding how the mind works will allow us to take our mind back and reprogram our mind in the way in which we want our mind to function. And that's really important in understanding what the mind is. First, before we can work with it, we need to understand the mind is not the brain. So the brain is the brain and the mind is the mind. And understanding the difference between the two is important so that we don't confuse it and think that we are our mind. Our mind is a tool that we have, and we are able to be aware of what is inside of the mind. When we start to mature in that way, then we start to look at the mind as a tool that can serve us and be an agent for us that we can program now with the information that we want it to have in it. And then we'll go about working on your behalf to bring to pass the things that are important to us in terms of achieving our goals, in terms of achieving our dreams, and in terms of achieving our aspirations. So it's really important to understand that what is the mind, right? And I'm grateful that for your perspective, Mark, on it. Thank you. And I know, David, you're jumping on here new to our conversation. We're in the process of developing a conversation around certain topics that will allow for us to remove hindrances and obstacles that are blocking us from being able to reveal our true nature as individuals and being able to tap into our gifts and our talents and our capacities. And we're building up a group of us that will participate in what's called a high-minded conversation, allowing for more and more people to come into a conversation about, you know, elevating ourselves, right?
It's all right. I'm catching up.
All right. Thank you for being here. So here's the deal, right? Right. So Mark, in bringing this together, right? In terms of your cards, I know you're very close to writing them out. When I shared my testimony that I'd manifested this apartment just last when I did that and you saw the whole process of it, you said you were going to be writing out your cards that same day, right? How did you get that done, Mark? Did you write out your cards that day?
They're not completed.
But you started.
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. What about you, Annette?
I complete mine.
Excellent. Wonderful, wonderful. I love it. So here's the thing, right? You know, what hit me in a good way, right? Is when I, you know, and David, you weren't here for that, but Mark and Annette, they were here. We've been reading Think and Grow Rich, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. So we've been going it through together. I read it years ago. This is my 4.5 time reading it, but I'm going to read it a 5th time before the year is out, because there are a lot of principles in the book that I was not practicing. And it's limiting the amount of success that I have had. And I could have had way more success if I was following those principles. And one of them in chapter 2 speaks about 6 steps of achieving any goal, right? I'm not sure if you know Napoleon. I'm sure you probably know Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. But in chapter 2, step 1 is identifying how much money you want or whatever it is that you want to achieve. Step 2 is what are you going to give to receive it? You know, we live in a something for something universe. We should not go after something for nothing. And then step 3 is to set a date when we're going to achieve it. Step 4 is to have a plan to achieve that particular goal that we've set. And then 5 is to write out a paragraph or a statement of steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then step 6 is to repeat it in the morning and in the night to ourselves. I learned it some time ago. I started and I stopped. And when I read the book again and it hit me, like, man, I hadn't been doing this. It's so important. I went and I wrote down my goals right away. And one of the goals I wrote down, because we're having a convention in Houston at the end of January, and right now I'm in Atlanta, and I needed to be in Houston for the event beforehand. It would give us an advantage of building up to the event, but I needed somewhere to stay that was affordable, you know, that would allow for me to be able to function. And I wrote down a ridiculous goal. I am so happy and grateful now that I have a 1-bedroom apartment in Houston, Texas, close to the Hyatt Regency for Extreme Effects Convention in January 2023. By December 1st, 2022, that costs less than $500 a month and includes washer and dryer, fridge and stove. I wrote that down for less than $500. Now that is what you go online, apartments, they're $1,300, $1,500 for those apartments per month. All right, Airbnb, $2,000 a month. And I put that down, and man, the long short story, I got a nudge, called a relative of mine that I remember was living there. He had a son that actually was transferred out of town, had an apartment, and the son ended up giving me the apartment for $250 a month. True story. Now, this is how the process works. But what happens is that if we do not give our mind an instruction, if we're not telling our mind what to do, our mind cannot pull together the possibilities and make things manifest. So we have to, as a matter of course, we do not have a choice. We have to give our mind daily instructions. And after that particular reminder, because for me, it was not abnormal to see that manifest. That's how it's supposed to be. But I was not practicing this. This piece is super, 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 super important. If we do not practice this piece, I'm telling you, you're leaving a lot, you're putting yourself through a lot of extra work to achieve your dreams, your goals, and aspirations. So it's so important, guys, that we actually, and everybody out there is watching this recording afterwards, right? It's so important, just like brushing our teeth every morning. Just like putting on a nice shirt and brushing your hair and having a shower in the morning, you know, whatever it is that you're doing on a daily basis. Writing these goals down and repeating them in the morning and in the evening, what that does is infuse it into our subconscious mind. And if we do it with a feeling, an emotion of love, an emotion of faith, you know, Mr. Napoleon Hill speaks about using the emotion of sex, and infuse that goal into our subconscious mind. What now happens is that the subconscious mind picks it up and starts to coordinate events that you could never coordinate at the level of the conscious mind. So that's where it comes back to what Mark, you mentioned, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is there to be programmed. But if we do not program it, what happens is that it's picking up stuff from our environment, and we're going to end up with stuff in there that we don't even want. That's why we have to shut out all forms of negativity. We have to shut out anyone that's trying to pull us down and weigh us back mentally. The conscious mind is our gatekeeper. We have to use it to protect the subconscious mind, because out of the subconscious mind proceed all the issues of life. You know, Solomon said it best, you know, that as your face reflects itself in a mirror, so do the conditions and circumstances of our life reflects the condition of our heart. So what we have to focus on is not the physical things outside, it's focus on what are you putting into your subconscious mind. And we have to be intentional and purposeful about it, because that is how it is, right? So I plan to keep our conversation brief and short and succinct today. But any comments before we bless each other and jump off of here? Mark, any comments about that? Any comments on it? And David, I know you're new to this, but any comments about that, Mark? Go ahead. Okay, Mark. Mark internet just went off. Boof. I saw him drop off the line. He unmuted and then he drop off. But any comments on it? Any comments before we bless each other?
Not really, no comments really. Just that I know I marked down my goals and I saying them. And I was talking to one of my aunts and she said, Annette, it have like prayers to read with it. So I'm doing my affirmations.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So make sure you do your affirmations, man. It's super critical. Mark, I see your internet took you off, but you're back. You want any comments, Mark?
Yes. So we got to be very careful of what we take into our mind, whether is it through the eyes, whether is it through the ears. We got to be very, very mindful of what we take in. You know, we want to be around positive people who speak positivity alone. That is very important towards really getting to your goals and aspirations and really being able to control your results or the results you will get. We need to control what we are seeing with our eyes and what we are hearing with our ears. We need to be around positive people. We need to be doing positive things.
Excellent, excellent. Absolutely right about that. I know, David.
And what you tune into is what you would turn into. I want to leave this one.
Mark is like if you're telling me that
what you're going to turn into.
What you tune into is what you turn into.
Yes, Dr. B, just tell me some of those things.
What you tune into is what you turn into, right? What you tune into is what you turn into. Ah, love it. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. All right, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, man, there was a great discussion, and thank you very much for showing up. We're just getting warmed up, and you know, just getting warmed up. We're literally just getting warmed up and giving birth to an amazing, amazing movement that's gonna blossom and bloom all over the world. So thank you very much for showing up, guys. Really appreciate you.
Well, I won't be on tomorrow. I have to go out to the doctor.
All right, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. But we'll roll. We'll roll. All right. Well, let's bless each other. So I bless you, Annette, and your life is magnificent. I bless you, Mark.
I bless you, Mark, and your life is magnificent.
I bless you,
Harry, and your life is
magnificent. I bless you, David, and your life is
magnificent.
All the others,
I bless you, David, and your life is magnificent.
And your lives are magnificent. Amen to that.
Everyone and their life are magnificent. Bye-bye. Blessed day, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.